Welcome back to Afternoon Session. I'm Bob Bianchi. We're going to take a look at a trial that could have opening statements as soon as this afternoon, and that's the trial of New Mexico versus Dean Cummings. The 56-year-old defendant, who was once a world extreme skiing champion, is being charged with second-degree murder, tampering with evidence, and concealing identity for the 2020 death of Guillermo Arriola. The defendant claims that Arriola was involved in a syndicate to destroy his skiing business, and that Arriola jumped him, threatened to kill him, and sprayed him in the face with a burning chemical. Cummings claims there is a conspiracy to try and destroy his heli-skiing company in Alaska, and even detailed it in a 20-part series on YouTube. So once again, you know, they're talking about their stuff on social media, which we can expect to probably listen to. There are a lot of factors that will come into play in this trial. For starters, the defendant was a world extreme skiing champion, and as a member of the U.S. ski team, he was once listed as one of the 25 top skiers in North America. Cummings has pled not guilty, arguing self-defense in his deadly encounter with Arriola. If convicted, he faces up to 15 years in prison plus fines. Let's bring in my guest to discuss this case. Marie, we'll start with you. What do you think we can expect to see in this trial? How strong is the state's case?
I think the state has a strong case, but I also think that defense attorneys need to, at this point, focus on the defendant's state of mind, because in self-defense, it's what was the defendant feeling when he or she thought that it was necessary and their life was in danger of death, and then they killed somebody to protect their life. And from what I've heard, this paranoid situation, maybe some type of paranoid personality disorder, which is intense, irrational distrust and suspicion of everyone around you. It sounds like this defendant fits that bill. So defense needs to put someone on the stand to explain the irrational fear and why he felt that way. That's what they need to do.
Yeah, Trey, let's talk a little bit about the self-defense thing here. So that's an affirmative defense. Maybe you can explain to our audience what that means and what the defense and prosecution, more importantly, have to do to disprove that beyond a reasonable doubt.
Sure. So it's justifiable defense, which means you believe your imminent fear of your self being in danger, and your right to commit homicide, to protect yourself. The prosecution seems to have a pretty good case in terms of the second degree murder. The defense is going to be interesting because, you know, he was shot. The victim was shot by the defendant, I guess in response to an attack with some chemicals or something. You know, the first thing that comes to my mind is, did he run back to get his rifle? Was it by him? You know, the circumstances in terms of whether or not he was, you know, his imminent fear of his life and safety continued, or it somehow, you know, lessened. So I think a big point is going to be, you know, where was that rifle and the immediate circumstances leading up to its being used.
Yeah, and Marie, while prosecutors do not have to prove motive in their case, when you're dealing with a situation like this where there is a self-defense charge, we always want motive. That always helps you, but I think it's particularly needed to combat the self-defense claim. What are your thoughts about that legally, and do you know of any facts that are supporting that, or do we have to kind of wait till we hear opening statements?
I think we kind of have to wait till we hear, but what I'm hearing is that the defendant was paranoid and really called in after the murder to say there was some big conspiracy against him. And I think their focus is going to have to be to explain that. And even if mental health created a motive that wasn't even there, defense needs to focus on that, because this guy was totally paranoid based on what he did afterwards and the phone call he made describing this big conspiracy against his business.
Yeah, Trey, what are your thoughts about that? I mean, if the victim is having some sort of mental breakdown or whatever, does that increase the argument by the defense that, you know, the defendant was confronting a situation where somebody was mentally unstable, and does that help the self-defense argument?
I think it does. I mean, the state of mind is very important. And if we look at what led these people together, some type of business deal or claims of fraud, all of a sudden ends up in death, I mean, that's a big canyon to be crossing. And so the state of mind certainly seems to be, you know, critical in this situation. But there's just so many questions. That's why I think this trial is going to be extremely interesting in the facts that we get to see. What led, was a business argument, a claim of fraud, a claim of wanting to ruin somebody's enterprise, to having them kill them. With this intervening situation of putting chemicals or attacking with chemicals, there's a lot of dots that need to be connected on this, and we just haven't seen the facts yet to do it.
Maria, I got about 40 seconds. Give me your breakdown on what you see the defense doing in the case, and from what you know right now. I know it's unfair. Is it going to be a fight? Is it going to be a fair fight, or is this going to be a no-brainer for the state?
It's going to be a fight, but they're going to have to bring in experts to explain his irrational state of mind and how he overdosed on protecting himself by killing somebody who simply sprayed him in the face. Why the AR-15? Like, I'm not understanding that. I agree with my co-host on that. That's like a pebble being thrown at you, and then you spray someone with bullets.
Yeah, I think a lot of this, though, also like in the Rittenhouse case, and I know that that's a lightning rod, but it depends on the culture of guns in the community that they're in, which I think makes a big difference that maybe we don't understand in a more restrictive state as opposed to a more liberal state.